Here back with another database design tutorial, and we're going to go over the concept of a primary key first. Primary key is the equivalent of the concept of the identifier in the ER model like we were discussing. The ideal primary key is short, numeric, and never changes. Okay, a surrogate key is an artificial column added to a relation to serve as a primary key. Okay, and if you look at this diagram here, the super key encompasses both the candidate key and the primary key. Right, then we go to candidate key, and we've lowered the pool there. We've made it lower, and then we go to even the primary key, and that's like the most specific of them all. Right. Now it's going to change this so I have somewhat of a pointer here. Okay, so a foreign key, the primary key of one relation that is placed in another relation to form a link between the relations. We kind of already went over this in one of the prior tutorials, so I'm not going to dwell on that part. But there's no foreign key as an attribute in ER design. Right, so when we were mapping out those tables and stuff, we never said, oh, and this is a foreign key here, because there's no foreign key as an attribute in ER design. Data integrity is 1, accuracy, and 2, correctness of data. Okay, now there's 4 types of integrity constraints, which are rules that guarantee data integrity. There's entity integrity, which means each entity is mapped to one table, right? So each entity is in one table. And every relation must have a primary key, and that key cannot be null. Right? So again, each table has a primary key which cannot be null. Now, domain constraints means one attribute, right? And all the values of an attribute should be taken from the same domain. So one column here delineates one attribute, and they should all be taken from the same domain. So if we define the domain as, integers between 1 and 10, if we have 1 here and 12 here, this doesn't fall in that domain. So that breaks this integrity constraint. So remember, that's the second constraint. The third type of constraint is referential integrity. When you have 2 tables, we want to maintain consistency between the 2 related relations. And referential integrity essentially means that if we have a primary key in one table, and we have another primary key, right, that we're going to take the primary key of one and put it as a foreign key in the other so as to establish a link between the tables. And 4, operational constraints refer to the whole database, and that refers to business rules, right, when working with the data. Now, entity integrity, no primary key will ever be null. That's the basic description. Domain or data type is the set of values that may be designated to an attribute, as we were saying. Then we have referential integrity constraint, a statement that limits the values of the foreign key to those already existing as the primary key values in the corresponding relation. Right? So we can't just take any attribute and make it a foreign key. We need to use the primary key of the other table, like up here, right? So that's an important constraint. And if there's a foreign key in a relation, the foreign key, right? So if we already have a foreign key there, it's just the foreign key. Okay, now operational constraints, case-based and are enforced by writing specific triggers and procedures. So remember that for this one, this is more of the business rules, right? But I actually would like, since we have some time, to now start going over some more material. So if I could just grab an eraser here and erase really quick. Okay, so we have another minute or so in the 5-minute tutorial. So requirement analysis. Right? We interview users, analyze forms and reports, get a business description, right? So interview users, right? And this is the start of any programming project. You want to know, analyze forms and reports. You want to know, right, what objective you want to hit with the code you're writing or with the database, whatever you're doing, and get business description. You need to know what that needs to do, or how in the world are you supposed to make something that actually fulfills the task. And now one more thing, conceptual design is ER modeling, so extended ER diagram modeling. And that's about all we have time for in this tutorial, but see you guys in the next tutorial.